the hour. Dig.
Happy Monday, Justin. How are you, sir?
Yeah, what's up, man?
How was your weekend, man?
What's up? Good. Your friend and mine, Andrew Heaton, was in town, so we had a lovely little dinner, and got some stuff done. This is the first week in a while where I wasn't like actively editing something, and it felt a little naked.
Oh, like
Which
just empty?
Well, it was just like I've kind of like built my weekend around like finish with like the stuff for the day or for the week on Friday, and then I go on this like big long walk and it's awesome. And so that was great on Friday because Heaton was here, and so we went, and it for one brief fleeting moment it kind of, if you if you squinted and imagine that masks were just more of a thing, it looked like normal. Like we wound up just finding a bar that we sat outside, and it was a lovely night, and we had drinks in actual glassware, which was fun. And then Saturday, really, like, that's my like production day for audio stuff. So I'll normally either write or record or edit or usually all three. And then Saturday afternoon, I'll take like a big long walk from like 4 o'clock to like 8 or so.
Is the long walk usually associated like with being the dessert
Drinking.
after doing some accomplishment, or is it just
a
sort
little
of
bit? It's part of the symbiosis of I work on a thing, I then upload it, I then listen to it while I walk around and drink and just savage it.
Yeah.
Like just shred it.
You know,
like,
I wonder how many people listening to this right now understand like that you and I are kind of built to the same thing, in that quality comes from looking at the product and hating yourself, hating past you for everything you did.
well, I think it's one of those things that the worm kind of turned for me with Raise the Dead season 2, where I kind of realized, oh wait, this is like a friend's project. Like if you sent me a thing and said, hey, I really, really, really need like deep scrub notes on this, like nothing's off the table. Like we could totally, like, aside from like the thrust of the general thing, and like very rarely do you get those opportunities. And I think I have good notes, but also it's like what you realize with your friends when you're doing it, even if they're asking for opinions, they're not really asking for opinions, right? Like they're largely asking for validation, which is good. It's an important part of the process. But what I realize is like, oh wait, like I can do that for myself, and it fits in a thing I like to do, walking around and drinking. Like I can do top shelf criticism. In fact, it might be better than top shelf, as I am like just ripping like little things where sometimes I'll look back at my notes and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like,
so I was about to ask if these are mental notes or physical notes, but it sounds like you're punching them in the phone or something.
On the phone. But really what I found out is that if I do that on a garbage script, like if I write a script where it's literally just there, but I mean, the biggest thing I realize is that I have to edit in audio. I can't edit on the page. Like there's just no way that I, like, with Raise the Dead season 1 with 7 scripts, I revised them and sent them to people, and they gave me their notes and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, I wound up having to revise them once I recorded them anyway. So this time I was like, with season 2, I was like, no, I'm just going to record like basic outline. Boom. Now write to that outline. And I don't care if even as I'm writing it, I know that it is hot shit right?
Right.
The point is to get to the point where I'm recording it. And then once I record it, then it's like the next level on me just shredding it was realizing, okay, well, let me just listen to it and find out like, why did that suck and what would make it better? And so it's like, the million times that we've talked about television shows or movies or something, and you're like, man, you want to know what the better movie would have been if they just would have stayed with that one character. He had a way more interesting life than the main character. And it's like, oh, that's the key. And so like this Saturday was the first time in a while that I haven't had some kind of project. It was like Raise the Dead, and then it was this new special that we have with Tom Merritt and myself for PX3 and DTNS about Prop 22 out here in California. And then it was a few other projects that are in various levels of development. And like, this is the first time I didn't have anything. And so it felt a little weird. It made me realize that I kind of just want to keep editing and producing. Like, I just like that element of my life. I feel good and productive.
I'll tell you what, during a trapped in a bubble time, I know of nothing. I assume it's the same for audio editing as video editing. I guess I've done both, but I know of no faster way to get into flow state and make it suddenly tomorrow morning than editing. There's something about making one tweak, listening to it, making another tweak, listening to it or watching it, and then suddenly the sun is rising. It's unreal.
I mean, video editing specifically, I kind of feel like is a absolute time warp. Like, audio editing, I found it less than with video editing. Video editing, there's just so much, and like the visual frame of reference, how you're editing, like how you're matching all these things together, like it is really just a whole, I mean, literally it's another dimension, to audio stuff, but it's like, it just makes that puzzle that much harder to
but it also gives
together.
You more moves to make, to desync audio, to take an out of context clip, a wild line, and cut to another camera and all that stuff.
Yep. 100%.
You mentioned something that I noticed on Twitter, you seeking feedback on it, and it caused me to actually look it up because I don't live in California, so it's probably not the weirdest thing that I didn't know anything about Prop 22. So when I went there, I was a bit surprised that Prop 22 is basically a proposition that is like, normally when you write a law, it's to cause something to change. But Prop 22 sounds like it's a law saying, hey, the way you think of the gig economy is the gig economy. So voting for Prop 22 is to vote for independent contractors.
So it's even dumber.
Okay.
As dumb as that sounds to everybody, it's even dumber.
Act like I don't live in California and I don't know nothing about Prop 22.
I got you. And in fact, by the way, in the main feeds of Politics, and Daily Tech News Show tomorrow, there will be a very succinct, professionally produced, a better version of what I'm about to tell you now. So Prop 22 is not even a law, nor does it overturn a shitty law that it is trying to correct. Instead, it just makes the shitty law weaker in one specific area, and that is gig drivers. So basically, there was another very controversial law called Assembly Bill 5 in California, and this is
the one that screwed over friends of ours who,
yes,
like they were doing a whole bunch of blog posts for a small amount each, but they could make it up on volume. And then the law basically said if you write 5 blog posts a month, you're a full-time blogger, and you are either fully employed or you're not allowed to do it. And so, people who paid money for blogs said, all right, well, I guess we have one full-time blogger who will write all the blogs now, and everyone else can get bent.
So that bill was there to make gig drivers employees. Like, that's why they passed that bill, and they were, and the guys who passed the bill were not shy about it. So that's why at the very beginning when they passed it, they came up with a bunch of different exemptions. So if you were a tax attorney, if you were all these various other different things, what they didn't realize was that there were a lot more places that wanted exemptions, including bloggers and musicians. There were all these stories about like, oh, well, you can't play at a club
Because if you
because
play
the
there
club
5 times a month, you must be a
exactly,
full-time
then you
employee.
must be an employee.
Ooh, that's so dumb.
So then Assembly Bill 5 was watered down again with more exemptions, but not obviously drivers because that's all they ever really wanted to do. So Prop 22 is basically, hey, while you're handing out all those exemptions, why don't you also exempt drivers? And since they're writing a law, they can now offer gig drivers things that they couldn't legally do as independent contractors. So they can now offer them certain guarantees. They can offer them health care. They can offer, or at least like a payment that is equivalent to a healthcare withholding, blah, 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 blah. But it is a bill that was written by Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and Instacart. And so the funniest thing about it is that the people that I'm watching say no on 22 are largely people that enjoy, if not depend on these services, but feel bad about it and feel bad that they are taking
Oh,
advantage of
that's the
people.
worst kind of vote is somebody who is like, well, they don't know, they know not what they do. They can't possibly be more expert in their time, their allocation of resources, and their life.
Well, I think the other thing is these companies can afford it. That's I think the big rallying cry is that and look, labor unions are a part of this fight. They are like, hey, look, you are this is the exploitation of labor that the movement was literally built for, is that if you can get your hooks in an underclass and deny them rights and benefits while these companies soar to unforetold financial heights, then that means that we need to level the playing field. That means that these guys need to be employees, and then hopefully, I'm sure from their perspective down the line, unionize.
So I guess there's two stories. There's the story of somebody who, I've driven cars for 40 years and now I drive for Uber and I don't have any of the things I used to have. I work 10 hours a day and it really sucks because the pay is poor and I get no benefits. And that is
Yeah.
one story. And then the other story is I am deeply in debt and started driving Uber as a second job after I finished my day gig. And it was a lifesaver, the flexibility and the ability to work as much as I want or as little, because I'm not a full-time employee. Because a full-time employee, they decide your schedule. I get to decide my own schedule, and I can ride the money bicycle as much as I want. And I am very happy for the trade-off of freedom. I don't need benefits because I don't mind paying for it myself or having it with something else.
Yeah, and the second story is what the $180 million ad campaign furnished by Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and Instacart have focused on is like, hey, this is flexible employment, especially in a pandemic where people have gotten fired. This is necessary. To take it away now would be unnecessarily cruel. But then on the other side, there is basically from the no on 22 camp, they believe that the talk from all these rideshare companies where they're like, hey, look, money's money, and if we have to employ these people, then we're going to employ about 10% of drivers, and everybody else will get to your application when we get to you. And meanwhile, the those who are no on 22 are like, yeah, bullshit. You'll wind up employing the vast majority of the people that are driving. You're just lying now because you want to hoard
Scare
more
everyone.
money. I mean, the funny thing is that almost universally, I feel like this bill is poisoned by people's opinion of Uber under the last CEO. Like,
Right.
not even the CEO that's there now,
It's
but
been
under
it's
the
been a few
last
years
CEO.
since Frat Bro guy was out, right?
Yeah, and he got run out, but it's like, because Lyft doesn't have a bad thing. I mean, DoorDash has maybe a little bit of a weird reputation because of how they've handled, like, they were trying to guarantee a level amount of money, but that meant that on certain deliveries, they would take more fees than
Oh, that's right. That's
the
right.
tip
Like
would
the
be or
tip
whatever.
would, yeah, the tip would never go to them. It would just go to, yeah.
So it's like, so then they were like, oh, we were trying to make it a more stable income for people, but if you guys just want the situation where there's never a tip sometimes, but sometimes there's every cent that they give you, then we'll do that. But other than that, like all these companies have a fairly good reputation, except for Uber under their last leadership.
And even then, I don't know enough on the inside of Uber to say whether or not it's undeserved or not, but it's certainly the stated reason for the poor reputation is certainly not accurate or not reflective of the current situation.
Well, I mean, first things first, Uber built themselves on a fuck you do something about it attitude when it came to government. Like they built their empire on saying, oh, you have taxi unions that we feel are unfairly monopolizing on this thing. Well, guess what, dickheads? We just turned on our app in Miami. So anybody can use it until you legally start fining drivers, not even the company. The company, send us the bill, we'll get to it. We'll pay it in whenever. It's when they started fining the drivers that they would stop. At that point, they would pour a bunch of money into whatever city council thing to be like, hey, did you guys like it when you paid less for taxis? And they always took credit cards and you could just get in and out of cars because this is obviously a better service than taxis. And that's how they broke Austin. That's how they broke Miami. That's how they broke Vegas. That's how they broke New York.
Although actually, Austin broke them because Austin tried to fight back with fingerprinting and well, no. Yeah. Uber and Lyft are the ones that caved. Austin said,
okay, no. They did things, yes, but they came back. Like, right. You know, the idea was that Austin fought back against it. And Austin, to the credit of Austin over Vegas and New York, which had far stronger taxi lobbies, Austin did hold up and like went a year without those companies and had their own local ones.
But again, you're acting as though Austin broke. They never broke. I'm not. All right. Sorry.
Yeah. Wrong. I'm sorry to impugn the great honor of Austin. I'm
saying
no.
I just think it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, they also made a BS thing saying. They made a boogeyman saying, you don't know if this person has a criminal record. Here's some onerous. Everyone has to be fingerprinted. Everyone has to have a background check. Everyone has to have this. And they're all like, yeah, we're not going to do that. We'd rather leave. And then they left. And then Austin never changed their law that they made that was definitely made.
And then they came back.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, that was the way that they built their thing, was being adversarial to local governments. And they've had various skirmishes and by and large, like they relied on the fact that consumers like their product. The question will be now, who do you believe when Californians go out to the polls and vote on it? And here's the other thing. That same ABC standard that created the Assembly Bill 5, that same standard of what an independent contractor is in a bill that passed the House. That is largely a labor union kind of wish list.
Sorry. Well, walk me through what that means. So the criteria to define someone as an independent contractor.
Yeah. Effectively, the definition of what an independent contractor that did not include, bloggers and musicians and gig drivers and all that made Assembly Bill 5, that has already passed the House as federal law. Now it's DOA and Capitol Hill as long as the Republicans run the Senate. But if the Democrats get the Senate, it's not out of line, especially if it has already been held up in California after the companies fought back, that we could see Assembly Bill 5 like definitions for independent contracting to be
nationwide. Oof. Yeah, that's rough.
But so that's what it is. And that's why I think nationally there should be some attention on it.
But
it's
I was going to ask, is it close? Is it not close? Is it overwhelmingly one side
It
or the
doesn't
other?
look like it's going to pass. It doesn't look like, and so yes on it is for the gig share companies. No on it is for Assembly Bill 5. And
Yeah, no, and I guess
like because it has to get to 50%, and right now it's polling around like 35, something like that.
that sounds like the kind of thing, if you have a dog in the fight, you are either the company, in which case you want that, or you're a driver, in which case let's say, just for grins, half the people are kind of full-time in it and they're saying, yeah, man, I would like to be a full-time employee and have benefits. And then the other half of the people are part-time in it and they're all like, no, I would very much like to have all this flexibility. But if you don't have a dog in the fight, then it's purely a story of moneyed interest screwing a little guy. And it's like, well, I don't really care one way or the other. It's not going to change what anything costs me. I'm going to feel good and vote for the little guy, not realizing that that those little guys are making their own, some people value the flexibility over the money.
Yeah, I mean, by and large, it appears through like fairly reputable sources that drivers, by and large, want to remain independent. But that's not universal, because anybody can be a driver, and maybe you drove for a little bit and you had a bad taste in your mouth and you don't drive anymore, but you want to make them pay for it. And you would like it. I mean, I guess that's the question is, how many people fancy themselves an employee? How many people want to be an employee of any of these companies? That's the other thing, is that once you're an employee for one of these companies, you can't be an employee for the other one.
Ooh.
So it's like,
oh, that's right. Because I think 80% of any time I've taken a Lyft, they've had both badges, Uber and Lyft.
Yeah.
And then they
they
just sort of kite between the two different services.
Now, by the way, that was one of the things that Uber under the old CEO was a dirtbag about, was that they were very reticent to allow Uber drivers to drive for Lyft. They did not want that. And so like,
which is a privilege of when you have a full-time employee. You get to say you work either here or there, but not for a gig. Like, I don't get to say, hey, if you're going to deliver pizza to my house, you don't get to deliver it to so-and-so's house.
So they would like apparently identify drivers that were taking stuff for both company, and then phantom hail rides for Lyft, like,
right?
So
just to screw with them and then cancel.
Just to be like, to make them think, Lyft sucks. Like, I want to just do Uber, or they would like cancel their accounts. It was fairly dirtbag behavior, but it seems like those chickens are really coming home to roost, because anecdotally, when I look around and see what my friends think on this, and by the way, there are almost universally people that I have seen talk about, especially in the pandemic, taking advantage of Instacart, taking advantage of DoorDash, taking advantage of Postmates. Uber and Lyft are in a bit of a more tricky situation, but certainly Uber Eats, they're like, no, I don't want this if it means that these people are being taken advantage of, which means that the labor unions kind of won that argument because people don't trust the companies.
So the economist Milton Friedman once said that there are 4 ways to spend money. The very best way is to spend your money on yourself. That means you get the lowest price and you maximize value. And then there's that time, like, you buy a gift for someone, in which case you spend your money on someone else, in which case you want to spend as little as you can. And it doesn't really matter if, they derive the biggest benefit from it or whatever. Or you can spend other people's money on you, in which case you don't really care how much it costs, but you're going to make sure to maximize the benefit to you. And then the very worst way to spend money, full stop, is to spend other people's money on other people. And in that case, you don't care what it costs, and you really don't care what kind of benefit, what it is. You just want to get it done, feel good about it, check it off your list. And what you're describing sounds like, we're careening towards, like, the people who are voting no are spending not their money, because it's, taxes, the government, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're spending it on people who are not them. So they don't even care to hear the whole story of whether or not a majority of drivers want it or whatever. That strikes me as a bummer. Although maybe somebody listening has an interesting take on it. But it's
Uh,
as somebody who has been in the gig economy since May of 1999, yeah, I very much value the flexibility that comes from it, and it has not been too big of a deal for me to pay for my own insurance and that stuff all that other time.
yeah, I do think that part of it comes down to the concept that these companies are very rich. They are going to be here forever or a long time, and they need to be more equitable with their wealth. That I think is a huge motivating factor here, because I think if you were, Doc Brown comes back in the DeLorean and he's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Uber shuts down in California and then they're dead as a company within 3 years." Like I think that that would probably change people's opinion on it,
But
right? I think
but
people
we
would be
all
like,
we all strongly suspect that will not be the case, and that they will be able to absorb this cost.
enough, yeah, enough people. Now, the question then becomes, is the service the same?
Right.
Because what Uber and Lyft have desperately tried to do in their biggest markets is create that critical mass that makes for that magic experience of hit a button, 2 minutes later, there's what you want, and now you leave. Whereas if there's less people, I mean, like, look, it's the same
Well,
difference
and
between
they're
like,
more secure in their position because step one is make them full-time employees. Step two is unionize, and step three, make it very hard to fire people. And bye-bye five-star experience. Once people can't, are feeling secure in their positions, congrats, you've created the taxi company. You've created exactly the thing that we hated so much that Uber showed up.
yeah, I mean, and that is a possible progression, right? But then again, that's everybody's reading, and that's why I think it's a fascinating the idea of unions now, or labor rights and labor versus capital. Like, it is kind of a defining issue of our time. We're having like a very a lot of very interesting conversations around that, and ultimately our points of view, our economic points of view, will always color that, and all politics is local. Not all these situations are exactly the same. We had one of our great listeners, just another pilot, who is has worked as both a union and a non-union guy, that sent us an email about the Southwest thing. Um, about the union a question there, pretty much backing up the idea that, like, hey, this isn't about whether or not these employees love Southwest or not. This is about, from the union's perspective, that all these companies got gigantic federal bailouts, and like either they're going to pay their workers what the bailout money was for, or they're going to save more of that for themselves, and the union can't sit by and allow that to happen. And I think that, like, those things are uh, a far more personal than just our own personal opinion on, like, well, I think that the most motivated worker is in solidarity with his brother or in competition with the world. Like, and that's kind of our core, like, economic tribes.
Yeah, I don't think I got that email. I guess it just went to you.
I think I saw you on it, but I don't know. Maybe you got the email wrong.
I just searched for Southwest and I don't see anything in there.
Oh, search for SWA. That's how
Oh,
he's a pilot. See, so he
so
he
you do it.
he
You do it
he he,
short.
he refers to all the shorthand.
Um. Oh yeah, you know what? For some reason it was marked as not important. That's a bummer. I lean so heavy on that Gmail important and unread tab that it always
Mm.
bums me when sometimes stuff comes out like that. Oh, good. I have a letter to read now.
But anyway, I mean, I think that, like, that's the question is, how much do you believe where the future goes based on this bill? And that's the one thing that I wish the conversation was more about, and less like, boo, Uber was bad, and I don't like the way that they've handled this. Because it's like, yeah, I think people who would be staunchly pro Prop 22, nobody would cape up and be like, I'm in it because Uber's the greatest company that's ever lived.
Yeah, and that's that whole the unintended consequences. You know, whenever you get a piece of legislation that is about an industry, but is really about this one bad acting company, it always feels good to stick it to that one bad acting company, and it's always 20 years later that somebody points out, in this other place where they don't have this law, this has flourished. We should have that too. Undo that law.
I do wonder whether or not it would have been better in hindsight if they lose this, if all the rideshare companies lose this, if they should have not included Uber in it on purpose. Like if Uber should have their CEO, even though it's a new guy, he should have been throwing cherry bombs down the toilets of senior citizens' homes and shit, just being like, we're Uber, we're evil as hell. We want you to vote no on Prop 22. We're crazy. And everyone, like, you know, Lyft is like, dude, hey, bro, like, we're just trying to make a living. Am I right? Maybe
that is interesting because ultimately it's like, like you describe Proposition 22, and the first thing that they blurt out is like, well, which side is Uber on? And then like, well, they would prefer that you vote yes. And we're like, well, then I'm voting no.
I'm voting no. I mean, the other thing is that it's like, you know, Lyft might be dead. Like
if they have to make everybody full-time employees?
No.
Full stop?
If before this, because they're not in the delivery game.
Oh, and nobody's traveling anywhere. Nobody wants to get into a hermetically sealed bubble with a stranger. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so it's like their engagement has fallen off a cliff. They don't have another backup strategy like Uber. Uber was like, all right, well, then we're just going to try to we're going to try to doggy paddle with this delivery business for as long as we can. But I'll tell you what, I have a little rubric for when companies are in trouble, when tech companies are in trouble.
Yeah.
And that is how many times they alert me that they push an alert
about a coupon or of a special bargain. Well, because I mean, when you only have one major big old fat red button, and you know that the more you press it, the less it works. Like that's the way I am with sending out marketing emails on scamstuff.com or whatever. I'm very judicious about pressing that button, and it's tempting. You just want to be like that cocaine monkey that's just hitting it and wants, who knows, maybe something will happen. Like Facebook certainly is, pressing all the buttons at all times. I guess at this point they've given up because they email me literally 7 times a day with so-and-so had a picture, you're in it. Yeah. I'm just saying. But you're right. It reeks of desperation.
I'll just say, a lot of Postmates.
Oh, really?
A lot of text messages from Postmates. Like Bird Scooter right before they died. Levels of push alerts from Postmates these days. Now, maybe I'm not ordering Postmates as much as I did in the past.
You might be a user that could be salvageable, and why not go ahead and press that big red button as many times as you want?
Maybe that's it, but I'll tell you, maybe I should just make that my own little secret tech company thing. I wonder, there's got to be like a national repository of like alerts that are being sent out. Like,
yeah, it's interesting how like little things at a local level, you could tell if they're done systematically, almost certainly scale up. Like, I'm not going to lie, since coronavirus, the Chick-fil-A has gone from 2 lanes, one of which was being used, to like 3 and kind of 4 lanes. And because they've just leaned all the way in, and it's like, as a kid riding my bike up to a drive-through counter, I was like, oh man, I want to go through the drive-through on my bike. Always. It was like, no, you can't do that. It's a liability. You can't walk up. It's not safe. It's all that.
Yeah.
Fucking all that out the window. Welcome to the new reality where I'm walking right up, and then they lean over and say, we have a VIP coming through. And then I walk my ass up to that window ahead of all the cars, grab that shit, and then weave through 3 lanes of traffic, walking off with my nugs. But you see that, and it's like, okay, this is clearly a company that already was friendly to the idea of, unlike McDonald's, where it's like if there was anything weird about your order, it's like, hey, we can't stop this drive-through line. Go over to the penalty box and wait, and then we'll eventually get your plain hamburger out to you. Chick-fil-A was like, no, more lanes. And it's like, well, we made it 2 lanes, just, cones. Let's throw a couple $100 to the bank next door. Let us use their parking lot as a drive-through or whatever. Very clearly, they've been nimble in this moment, and they're making all the bank in the world, which caused me to look up and see if it was possible to invest in Chick-fil-A. And I found out that Kathy Truitt made his children, before he died, sign an agreement saying that Chick-fil-A will never, ever, ever go public. It'll always be a privately held company.
A private company?
Yeah.
Wait, so do they own... No, they franchise it, right?
They franchise, but Chick-fil-A, the company...
Chick-fil-A, the corporate office. Yeah.
Actually, it may be that they own all their restaurants. I know that they have a very precise training program. I mean, yeah, they've got a system, and they're very rigid and strict about it. But at any rate, it's like seeing that stuff. Like you could see next to them.
Holy shit.
What?
So they are extraordinarily stringent on who they allow to have it. But do you know what the franchise fee is to open a Chick-fil-A?
I would imagine it's nothing but crazy bank. I know that God, last time I looked at this stuff, I want to say it was like $250,000 for like a Subway or something. And from your reaction,
that's about what I know, and from what I've heard, it's about $1 million to open a McDonald's, something like that.
Holy shit! From your reaction, it's going to be a lot more than $1 million. Then
take your guess.
I don't know. I guess $2 million. That seems like so much.
The opposite way.
What?
$10,000 is all they charge for the franchise.
What?
Yeah. Chick-fil-A charges a franchise fee of just $10,000 to open a new restaurant. It doesn't require candidates to meet a threshold for net worth or liquid assets, but I presume that they do that at the expense of just weeding out every shitbag that wants to open up the franchise. Because my mom was in the franchise game for a little bit, like in the when she worked at a company called, well, I probably shouldn't name the company because it turned into a company
called Subway Inc.
But they were franchising. And what you find out is when you aren't very particular about whose money you're taking, you tank your entire fucking brand, because you got a lot of people that are sold, a lot of rich people that are sold on the idea that this is get rich quick and aren't.
And then they do a garbage job, and it tarnishes your reputation, the whole value. Alamo Drafthouse went through that. They started a franchise and then they undid it because I think we've talked about this before, but the one way up north at Lakeline or Lakeway was like at a time that the central location was doing cutting edge, custom videos for whatever the release was. Like they would get the supporting actor to do a thing saying don't talk during the movie or whatever. Yeah. Meanwhile, the one up north, 5 years after Napoleon Dynamite, was still running Pedro saying, hey, this is Pedro, don't talk during the movie, like way after the relevance. And you could tell they were just phoning it in. And so from what I understand, they reversed it, and maybe they reversed it again. Maybe they are franchising again under a more strict set of rules. But
last I heard with the SF one, that was Tim League. Like that was like them opening up. Cause I think I remember a story where like they had opened some in like Virginia that were franchised out and were garbage, and they didn't like it, and they kind of soured on that idea. But it's hard. And so people are saying here in the chat that like they sell their franchises to managers. So like people who have already worked at a Chick-fil-A, like they offer them.
Yeah, there's a friend of my daughter's, and so at our local Chick-fil-A, it's all teenagers. And then there's this one dude who's my age, mid-40s, and he's working the register. And then and I'm like, wow, that's not something you see every day. And then later on, I find out that his daughter and my daughter are friends, and they do a play date, and I walk up out the door, and that's that dude from Chick-fil-A. And we get to talking, and apparently, like, in order to eventually get your own franchise, you have to work every single station until you achieve mastery of it. And that includes taking orders, that includes running the fry cooker and all that stuff. So you get somebody who's ambitious and wanting to do the big game, and you very humbly have to work every single one of those positions until you are as good as anybody else there.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you what it takes to have that level of quality, right?
Yeah, Daniel J. Newman in the chat says, just ask the patrons. We get the hint, Brian. You want to open a Chick-fil-A? No, I don't, because you know what Chick-fil-A people do? Work very, very hard. And in fact, this is coming from somebody who worked at a Chick-fil-A. My very first job was being a fry cook at Chick-fil-A because they were the only people who would hire a 15-year-old.
That's insane, though, that they, I guess that like they're so secure in their supply chain that they're like, yeah, we don't need the big fee up front, like the $10,000. You're going to be able to get that. I mean, presumably you can open up a Chick-fil-A fairly easy, probably just on bank financing. Like, because it's, if you're getting the blessing from Chick-fil-A, like you are going to be able to get a loan. That's like, when's the last time you saw Chick-fil-A fail? I've never seen a failing Chick-fil-A in my life. In fact, almost universally, they show up and they are the bananas packed immediately.
In the chat, Papa Sparky asks, what franchise would be good for a Diamond Club endeavor? Golden Corral.
I'm Jeff Foxworthy. Come on down. We're gonna buy our own Golden Corral.
Oh man!
Put your dick in the chocolate fountain. Here at the Golden Corral.
And by the way, we would call it the writer's room. and admission would be only $1.99, all you can eat. But you have to let Brian and Justin watch everything and report on whatever they want.
Put macaroni in your taco. I don't give a shit. I'm Jeff Foxworthy. There are no rules at the Golden Corral. Now with to-go containers. Remember when that they were like fucking like, because you can't gorge yourself enough. You're also going to then get to-go containers so you can just shovel just these massive bricks of carbs and then drizzled in chocolate dressing.
Leave your morals. It's the Golden Corral.
Want all the excesses of ancient Rome on a budget? You have a Golden Corral.
It worked out great for them.
Lose yourself in wanton indifference here at the Golden Corral.
So tell me a little bit more about being able to just hang out and bar hop with Heaton.
That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like by and large, we were just walking around and
I guess
get to go things and just keep walking.
In my imagination, it feels like, and we've talked about this, like Epcot, and it's golden hour and it's just beautiful weather, and I'm just jealous.
It was definitely gorgeous, and there was definitely a magical moment as the sun set over San Francisco while we were down at Jack London Square. Where the ferry landing is. And we just hung out there and then went to this Irish place and drank Guinness and then walked on back and showed him up the roof, which, looks out onto Lake Merritt, which is great. So, no, it was awesome.
And
that was super fun.
Has the second episode of Raise the Dead season 2 coming out yet?
Released yesterday.
Perfect.
Yeah, The True Believers. If you are unfamiliar with Barry Goldwater, then this will be a great explainer as to his point of view. And despite the fact that he is the father of all conservatism, what we know today to be kind of establishment conservatism, for Barry Goldwater was a revolution, and the Republican Party at the time was not very excited about it. And I make the argument that that is very similar to Bernie Sanders, down to the fact that the Republican Party tried their best to kneecap Barry Goldwater's campaign. And I argue that the Democrats the only difference between them and the Republicans in 64 was their plan worked. And that's why Joe Biden is our candidate.
Man, how many days till election?
22, double deuces.
I was trying to get a sense of how likely Texas was to even be a swing state, and it did not look very likely to me. It looked like it's trending more blue, but this ain't going to be the year that it swings blue. So I'm gonna
I don't believe so.
Comfortably sit on the sidelines with my third party pennant and not worry about it.
Yeah, it's really the cities in Texas. It's Dallas, it's Houston. I mean, Austin has always been about as blue as Texas gets, but the burbs out there in Dallas and Houston specifically, considering their fucking massive population centers. I don't think that the rest of the country often understands that, like, Houston is the fourth biggest city, and that pisses off Dallas because if you actually
look at the whole metroplex.
Yeah. It's like bigger than Chicago. So, you factor both of those in, and then the idea that, like, those burbs only continue to sprawl and they only continue to get bluer because people that want to buy, I mean, what would effectively be in many other cities, a mansion with no state income tax, they're moving out to Denton. They're moving out to the suburbs of Houston or they're moving out to Hill Country in Austin.
And I tell you what, man, if you're living in LA, I mean, man, I can't even count the number of postcards we get for our old house where it's like somebody in California wants to buy your house sight unseen. And I'm like, I'm sure there's a reason for it, which is why I'll keep it. But if you are living in LA and you're accustomed to measuring commutes in time and not miles, then a 10-mile commute in LA is a 30 or 40-mile commute in Texas, because if you're on the highway, you're doing between 50 and 85 miles an hour, and those are speed limits, not expected drive, realistically. So if you're on an 85 mile an hour speed limit tollway, you're going 90, 95, and it really is a shorter commute in time, if not in miles.
Yeah, I mean, you can speed to the bullshit. Where in LA, you were always in the bullshit. The bullshit just
it's
surrounds
bullshit
you.
From the ocean to the desert. Nothing but bullshit.
Although Dallas and Orlando and LA are easily the shittiest traffic cities in the world, in that, like, you never know where it's awful. It's always awful in certain places. Like, Austin's getting up there, but only because it is so fucking overgrown at this point.
Well, and it was not built for this capacity. I mean, it was Austin was not ready for how popular it got.
Like, they are due for probably like 2 more freeways. Like, they're probably like 10 years overdue, at least for 1, if not 2 new freeways to kind of connect population centers, or at least widening or giving people other options to get around shit. But like, even then, you could build a schedule that avoided Austin traffic. Like, there still is, like, at least the last time I was there.
Well, and
like,
it helps out.
Get into the city before 3 and stay there after 6:30, and you're pretty much going to be okay.
It helps out tremendously that they finally built a price variable express lane in the middle, where it's like, if you need to get to an appointment or whatever, you're going to end up spending, $9 to $14 to take the express lane on Mopac, but you'll be thrilled.
Chef's kiss. Yeah. You will know where that money went.
Man, I wonder how many people had their eyes open, because I remember the idea of having price reflect demand on the highways in the 90s was super gross and made people mad. And now we have it, and it's generally considered to be a cool thing. Just like surge pricing for Uber and Lyft is, I don't think customers love it, but I think they do love not waiting forever for things. Have you seen a consumer shift on being cool with pricing reflecting availability?
I don't know. I still hear people get really fucking mad about
Surge pricing?
those. So yeah, like the variable pricing express lanes. But then again, I haven't lived near one in a while. So like literally they were just coming into favor in South Florida when I left, and people were cheesed off about it. There was the one that actually led from like where I grew up into downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem is that they often, because they're built to be two-way, and you have to build in all these like you're going the wrong way, like, variable things. It really complicates the highway. Um, at least it did in South Florida. So people were pissed about that, but in general, I think you're pissed about it until you absolutely need it, and you're like, yes, I would like that. But the question then becomes like, oh, okay, well, so we're all just the plebs. We're building the Elysium of rich people lanes. Cool. I guess I'm really excited those rich people get to their rich things. Like, I'll just be here in traffic with the plebs.
Yeah, I don't know. I think about it more like an emergency thing because I know that, like, I know how long I should allot for my travel up north, and then it's like, oh, surprise traffic jam. I either did or did not allow enough time to get there in time. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, it's going to cost significantly more if I am late to this appointment or miss it than the however much they're raking me over the coals for. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I used to get all fussy about, how much a drink cost on an airplane or, airports,
Oh, God.
I'll tell you what, fastest way to break your mind about pricing is to live on the road for a little bit, and realize that $4 for a single Diet Coke when it's been a day is not a problem.
Well, yeah. I mean,
$12 for a beer when it's been a day and your flight has just been canceled, not a problem.
Personally, I'm chronically late and I'm irresponsible with money. So those things are built for me. Like,
Yeah.
I am likely to be late, and I am likely to say, fuck it, of course, whatever it costs, I'll sign off on it. Let's go. So I'm fine with that. Like, that didn't stop me when I didn't have money, and it doesn't stop me that I have more money than I had then. So like, I'm fine with it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just people move to popular, cool places. I guess it's like it's a sign that I have lived in places that have continually become more and more populous because they've been pretty sweet.
Yeah, Frozen Slacker in the chat's asking how much they charge and saying this is a foreign concept being in Wisconsin. The one here in Austin is as low as I've seen it at like 30 cents and as high as, I don't know, $7, $8. It depends on all those things. But, and also it depends on what direction you're going because weirdly traffic is heavier in one direction. It's normally in the evenings going into a city is usually easy to do, but for some reason Austin's like just gets weirdly hiccuped. I guess enough people go up to the tech companies up north and then come down south for their where they live, and so it ends up being a real slog.
So I-95, of course, the main drag that the highway that goes up the East Coast. The lanes from between Miami-Dade and Broward, which is where I grew up. Broward is north, so a lot of people drive down to Miami and then drive back north to either northern Miami-Dade or Broward to live. According to a 2015 article, it is commonplace that it will top out at the maximum toll of $10.50 to use the northbound express lanes during the afternoon rush hour. But that's often the difference, depending on how far north you got to go. That's the difference of a half hour, maybe 40 minutes, and 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And also it's important to remember that usually these things are financed in such a way where they don't reduce the number of lanes for everyone else. This is, built on top of.
Yeah, they usually build another lane.
Or it's what finances totally redoing sections of the road. They factor that in. It's like, okay, we're going to front this cash so that we can redo this road and add these lanes. And then we'll make it up in the long term. But I'll tell you what, none of that makes you feel very good while you're stuck in bumper to bumper and somebody's blasting past you.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, that's the problem, is that like it just is, when you need it, boy, are you glad it's there. When you're not using it, boy, are you just, I mean, like,
You're shaking that fist up there.
You're always annoyed. It's traffic. Like, no one's like, if you like pina coladas, like just having a great time in traffic. Everyone's pissed off. So if you're watching something that is designed to piss you off, then that is what it is.
There is, I guess we're almost up against it. There is a few times where traffic has been thin enough that I'm like, there's no need to use the express lane. And then you get over the hill and then it's all stopped. And Austin has an awful lot of what I think of as free passes. These areas where the off-ramp does not lead directly to a stoplight. There's an off-ramp and then free going and then an on-ramp. And it's like, I think there are 4 or 5 of them between I-35 and Mopac, and it's like I intuitively have learned every single one of them where I'm that guy going in and out.
Just a shame. I've never felt more like Han Solo my entire life, when I had a flight out of SFO, and it's like, it was just, oh God, I'm so glad I don't live this life anymore. Like, I would have to wake up to make a 7 a.m. flight at SFO. I would still have to wake up at like 4:30, because I would need to beat the traffic over the Bay Bridge, or else I would like be running up against like
and that stuff is like a light switch, man. Like 5 minutes is the difference between full speed and you're hosed.
And so I realize I'm seeing traffic. I'm seeing traffic like back up earlier than it should, and I'm like, fuck. Like, so I'm like stopping in traffic, and I'm checking all the different apps to see like what they're saying, at least what it is. And Waze hits me with this Kessel Run shit where it's like, to get off the highway, go U-turn on another highway that like at that point, the traffic from one area of the East Bay is heavy, but not from like Berkeley. That doesn't get bad until like, another half hour afterward. And so like, I literally just did this bizarre cloverleaf bullshit, and I got through, and that was like, I was like, thanks, computer assistant. I'm a science fiction man.
All right, man, dude, it's already an hour. I can't believe it. Thanks for everybody joining us. We love hanging out with you guys.
Baby.
Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow night for Night Attack.
Yep. See you then.
Happy hour. Night Attack's happy hour. Night Attack's happy hour.